TV back here on part 3 of the winning the ticks off, so to speak. What I was talking about was alternative ways of buying if you don't want to have corporate debt over you like these banks and loan companies do. They'll hook you up for a 30-year note and milk you for 10 times what the house is worth, and when you lose it, if you lose, they blame you for it. I know I had an FHA home once, and I lost it because it just got ridiculous on being able to afford to make the payments on it. So when I inherited this place over here and it paid for, what do you think I'm going to do? So what I did, I come home and I remodeled this shop out here, and I've probably got under $2,000 in my cabin. It's 800 square feet. It's not a very big house, but neither was my FHA home. It was only, let me see, how many feet was it? I can't remember. Let's see. I don't want to get me lying here, but I got to think a second. I think it was about 900 square feet in the with the garage. And the garage wasn't big enough to even get one car in unless it was a little bitty dinky car like a Volts. Now that's what they built me. And they charged me interest on $49,000, floating interest, supposed to be 1% interest when I applied for it. When I got it, it was 7% floating. The more I made, the more they raised the payments on it. You know, as I made more money, they'd raise the payment. And then they come in and told me, whenever me and my ex busted up, they told me that I couldn't lease it, and I'd been leasing it for probably 3 or 4 years to help offset the bill to pay for the place. Well, they told me I couldn't lease it no more, so I said, okay, Big Daddy, it's all yours, eat it. When I got this place and I moved over here and built this shop into me a nice little home, and I just let them eat it. It took them 2 years after I gave it to them to go through courts and procedures before they took it back. Then I had it appraised for $80,000. The little FHA home was out by a golf course here in Poto, and it wasn't but about 300 yards from the golf course. That's what made it so valuable. But when they got smart and didn't like my appraisal, they said, oh, it's worth more than that, and they went and had it appraised. Well, they found out in this area it was only worth about $46,000. So they cut their own throat, and they sold it at auction for $53,000. So it was sold for more than I owed them. So that cleared me on the debt of it. It cleared me out on the debt. Now I've got it shows that I have a mortgage. What you call I'll tell you in a minute, foreclosure on the mortgage, on my credit rap, but they got their money in more than enough to cover everything, and not to mention I paid them 10 years. They made $20,000 off me, so they don't lose no money, you do. They got it all figured out how they're going to milk you. So if I hadn't been in a hurry for a home and had my head on right, I would have just went out and bought me an acre of land outright out of my own pocket and just put me up a storage building on it, if nothing else, just something to live in. Even though it wasn't fancy, at least it would have been mine, not mine and the bankers. That's my point. I will never go through a bank again to buy a home, land, or anything, because you will lose if you're a poor boy. They set you up to lose. They know you're going to give it up. They know you ain't going to pay for it. Not that long a term. If I'd have stayed in that note on a $49,000 loan, they would have ended up making, after 33 and a half years was my note, they would have ended up making a total of, I think I figured it up to $127,000 once with the interest for a $49,000 home. Come on. That's too much. Too much interest. It's just a rip-off. Them FHAs, HUDs, you want to steer clear of them if you don't have to use them. I mean, if you want, unless you just cannot build at all, and you can't find nobody to help you, I understand. But I would be careful about HUD or FHA, VA homes. They're not much better, a little better, but not much. The best way to get a home is, like, in my opinion, each to your own business, how you do it. I'm not telling you what to do. Don't get me on that. But like the homesteader said, you can choose what you want to do. Do you want to be a slave, more or less, to the lender for 30 or 40 years on a house that ain't worth half what you give for it? You got the repairs on it, you got the insurance on it. My taxes on that little house out by the golf course every year cost me $529 a year. Not only that, I had to keep insurance on it, was another $500 a year. But I had a good insurance. That was back then. Now it's $1,000 a year for the insurance that I was holding on it at that time. I had Allstate on it whenever I finally wound the deal up. The last time I had Allstate, and it had wind damage, hail damage, flood damage, drive-by shooting. If it was shot up by terrorists or whatever, I would get it paid for. It was all in the contract. But that was for $500 a year for the insurance, $500 and something for my taxes. So you see what you're looking at, and now it's at least $1,000 for that kind of insurance now. That was back in '96. I had it set up that way. Okay. Now with that being said after 10 years of paying on that place, I wound up with this. Zip. The only thing I can say is I got cheap rent. The rent out of the mortgage, when I lived in the house, 6 years I lived in the house, I only paid let's see, what was it? $147 and some few cents a month. So that's not too bad for a 3-bedroom, you'd think. But, you know, but whenever I got to working and making money, it went up. That's when they'd hit me for the full amount. I was paying $312 a month. When I was working out, or they found out I made a buck, they'd add it on. You see what I'm saying? If I would go out and did anything, you know. And for as my girlfriend, she wasn't married to me. She had no obligation to pay any of it, and I wouldn't ask her to, no way. I didn't want anybody else in on my business but me. She was on SSI, and if she would have reported she was living with me, they'd have cut her pension off. But she didn't live with me all the time. She lived between me and her sister and her mama and everybody else. That's why I got tired of that 3 rings, the circus, so to speak, with that. We won't get into that. I don't hold no ill feelings towards her no more. We're just done with each other. I've been out of that relationship 10 years now, and I'm a happy bachelor, I must say. A lot better off than I was putting up with her. But nevertheless, she's got her life and I got mine. But we're back. I'm back here talking about your survival. But that's why I'm saying if you don't want big lenders and debt over your head, like the guy up there on Homesteader was saying, your boat's filling up with water because we put too many ticks, too many holes in our boat, I should say. I call them ticks because they're like blood suckers. It's going to suck the blood right out of you. You hook them rich suckers up to you, and you're a slave to them. And that's what you've done. It's better to be poor, eating a cracker in the loft, and have something that you own, than it is to have a whole herd of cattle, for instance, and having a beefsteak a day and owing for all that, and wind up owing so much that you're a slave to it, that you're not getting to enjoy it. Not like you should. Like me, I went out on a limb 2 years ago, got suckered into buying a F-150 Ford truck. I'll come back to that here in just a minute. Hang on.